Welcome, everyone. I'm Pat Mitchell. This is the Truth Behind the Trade. This is where we dissect a member or non-member's trades and get to the truth behind the trade, exactly what the title is. So joining me today is Adam. He's a member. He's been with us for a little while here, and we're going to get to know him a little bit first. So how you doing, Adam?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm happy you're here. I think this is going to be a really good one. This is going to be addressing very specific issues that I know a lot of traders face, and a lot of traders don't have the nuts to actually address these type of problems, and especially to do it on camera. So first and foremost, I want to thank you for actually, having the stomach to do this. I know it's not easy. It can be definitely a little overwhelming and uncomfortable, but this is where work gets done. So I'm happy you're here. And we know you, but nobody else does watching except for the members. So why don't you give me a little bit of background? We'll start with, how did you get into trading? Like, where did you start? What's the deal with that?
Yeah, so came across YouTube channels like most. I did come across some penny stocks and decided, let's give this a go. I'm going to make $1 million. And started at it, had my scanners every morning and was going. I quickly whittled my account down $2,000 and realized that it wasn't as easy as they made it look. So I decided to switch gears. Wasn't done, kept searching. I came across a guy that was trading with you guys, and it clicked. It made sense to me. And so I joined. I watched you for about a month and I did well. And I thought, this is easy. I've got this licked. I canceled my membership and went at it on my own. I was like, I've got this figured out. This is a piece of cake. And did really good for 3 months. I tripled my account. And after that, I thought I had it. Like, this is a piece of cake. I'm telling friends and family, you guys got to check this out. This is easy money. And then came April 1st, and I gave all of the profits back in one day. And then the rest of April, I continued to whittle that account down until I blew it all the way up.
Yeah.
And I did that again in June. And after doing that twice, blowing up both accounts, I decided I needed to further my education. I joined again and have been dedicating my time to educating myself and really growing from this and learning that, I was trying to play checkers on a chessboard, so to speak. It wasn't working. It wasn't as easy as I had it thought in my head. And now, after being with you for quite a while, and I kind of see the ins and outs, it's not as easy as I originally had thought, and quickly learned that. And now I'm at the threshold where I'm ready to advance it. I'm ready to kind of shit or get off the pot. And I'm just having a little trouble with some mental aspects of things.
Yeah.
And I'm doing a lot of self-work. I've grown a lot over this last year. I've stopped drinking. I've quit coffee. Both of those have helped me out tremendously, just doing self-growth.
It's funny that you say that at the beginning, like what you first started talking about with your first month. You can set your watch by it. And I've talked about this a lot. I've talked about this on this very podcast as well, and as well as other podcasts and a million other videos. Your first month is always that like honeymoon period. It's almost like ignorance is bliss. There's a lot of things that traders don't know, and they come in without a muddied mind and they just follow what needs to be followed. It's almost like beginner's luck. It's not that. There's something more to that. And then there's 3 choices. There's the choice that you took where it's like, okay, I got this, I'm out. That would be like, again, a first year med student after first month of medical school being like, I got this shit. I can open up my own practice, and starts operating in his basement or something, right? And then you come across a surgery that maybe you've never even seen before, and you end up killing the fucking patient. And then there's the second choice where people will, after their first month, everything's still good. They continue on, and then they start coming into issues, right? And then they bail, they just quit. And then there's the third, and the third is probably the most important. That first month, after that first month, the second month, traders will always, it's like you can set your watch by it. They'll shit the bed and they'll start getting going on a red streak. And that's because you're getting overloaded with information and you don't know how to handle and process each individual piece of information, right? But then if you can work through that and mentally reset on that third month, middle of third month, that's when they'll start working themselves out. They'll start listening. That listening starts to click. And then they, have ups and downs, of course, like any other. It doesn't matter what trader you are or what you're trading. You're going to have those ups and downs. That's kind of what happens. Now, with your situation with, starting trading and, having that, it's, again, beginner's luck is not what I'm trying to look for there, because it's not beginner's luck. It's almost like a really, really simplistic view of the markets with very little education. And sometimes that's a good thing, especially at the beginning where you're coming in super fresh, right? And maybe you had a little bit of experience executing here and there with penny stocks and stuff. And then you come and you see a strategy that's working. So you're able to execute that. And then you start overthinking things because maybe the month that you joined, that market was real fucking clean, right? And those markets go up and down, and it depends on where we are on the daily chart and a million other variables. It's funny that you say that with that first month. I know that was pretty long-winded for the whole first month speech, but I see a lot of people do that. That's nothing new. But at least you were able to come back. See, a lot of people's story ends there, and that's real fucking sad, where they, do that and then they start having problems and then they blow up and then they're just done. They give up. No one can do this. It's impossible, blah, 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 blah. Whatever excuse they want to tell themselves so that they can just fold. At least you didn't do that. So with all of that said, I should touch on that you're into doing self-work and you're giving it, your all or your version of your all. And, quitting drinking and quitting caffeine, quitting things that may be setting you back. So you're in it, right? Like that right there is proof enough for me that you're in it. You're invested in it. The real first question is, if you could pick just one thing, right? Because I'm sure we have a list of things, but that one thing that's really holding you back, what is it?
Right now, it's fear. I have fear in the markets. And I'll say with that first month, I think that I didn't have any scars at that point. And so I didn't know any better. I was fearless.
Exactly.
I was Superman. But now I've got the scars and I have fear and it's messing with me.
Okay, so let's talk about fear a little bit. So it's fear of what? Like when you think fear, what do you visualize or what do you talk about in your head? What is that fear? Like I'll put it like this. Like when we're walking through, like I don't know if you've spent any time outdoors or anything, but let's say you're walking down and you're doing some hiking. Anybody's fear would be thinking about spotting a bear or a cougar, right? Like those are two things that most people could relate to, right? So it's like, that's what I want. That first thought of like, don't think about it too much. What's that first? It's like, that's the major thing.
Fear of failing, not being able to do it. That's the big thing. Like I'm trying so hard to grasp onto the account and I can't let it dwindle down at all because I don't want to fail. So I'm scared of that.
Yeah. Okay. So, it's kind of interesting how the human mind works. And, I'm not huge into manifesting, not in the traditional sense that a lot of people use it, because a lot of people use manifesting as an excuse. There's a pretty funny viral video that's on the internet somewhere. It's kind of like a bigger guy with a mullet and a mustache, and he's like going around like manifesting, right? I don't know if you've ever seen that, but it's pretty funny.
I owe the banks a lot of money, but little do they know, I just learned about manifestation. Now I'm gonna get so much money. I don't need a job. Why? Because I can manifest. I don't need the old gods anymore. I answer to no one. Everything is mine. Thanks to manifestation.
Bruh. And that is, how a lot of people, maybe in an exaggerated way, that's how they do it. But, manifestation without work equals failure. Like it doesn't work that way. But I do think what we tell ourselves does become reality. See, at the beginning for me, I'm sure, of course, I asked myself or, had conversations with myself that it's like I was afraid of failing. But I never let that really become a part of my identity. And that's not the right way of saying it, but I didn't believe it. I was afraid of failing, but I tried dismissing that as much as possible. And if you don't do something like that, it almost becomes like your mantra. Like if you repeat that to yourself every day, that I don't want to fail, or I am failing, depending on what side and how you put it in your mind, that can become reality. Like if you're telling yourself constantly like that negative thought, like, man, I'm failing, I'm fucking up, it's going to happen. And it's almost like it's a set course, right? There's a lot of people out there that have found like massive success in the world. That Conor McGregor is one that, there's this, I don't remember exactly how the quote went, but at the beginning of his UFC career, when he was a no name, he talked about people holding umbrellas for him. And, that was like the symbol of his success in his mind, right? So that he didn't get wet, I'm going to pay a motherfucker to hold the umbrella for me. And then there's pictures of him with now 3 people holding umbrellas. So it becomes reality, right? Like that's basically what I'm getting at. So when we're talking about fear, we need to be extremely careful how we do it. And we need to be aware of it. Like we really need to be super cognizant of the way that we are talking to ourselves about fear. And that can sound a little woo-woo, but it's reality. So when you talk to yourself about fear, how do you put it?
I try really hard. I do like this kind of stuff where it's manifesting and talking to your head positively. And I love that. I'm in big right now. Power of now, that stuff. I love it. And it's changed me. And I'm trying really hard I come to the computer in the morning and I'm like, I'm going to win. I have a 98% chance of winning when I'm in the trade. I'm telling myself this is a winning trade. This is good. And I have that feeling. But yeah, when the fear creeps in, I hesitate. I don't take trades. Then all of a sudden you're pulling profit on trades and I am FOMOing into other ones. That's what happened with this one that we're going to look at. And it just kind of snowballs.
I got a question for you and I want you to answer it and then we're going to come back to it later. Are you giving it 100%? Like in your, like, I just want your take on it. Like you're doing everything that you can. It's just a simple question.
Absolutely.
Okay. So let's go into the trade now. Before we do, you took a trade on Intel, correct?
I did.
Okay. And this was when? This was yesterday?
Monday.
Okay. So today is Thursday. I'm not able to think back that far, but let's take a look at it. Okay. So here are Adam's entries. And I'll pull up the charts here in a second. I just want to take a quick peek at your entries. And what it looks like here is we have an initial entry on a wash. We have an ad with speed down, another ad. So you have bing, bang, boom. How many contracts are we trading here?
You did tell us to size down. So it was only one. I'm at the point where I'm trying to do 3 to 5 on my sizing. But on that day, I was like, I'm just going to do one.
Okay, so you took one contract 3 times, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, and then you stopped fully out on that a hair later. So if you look at the option, your last entry, we'll call it 85, and then your all-out sell was at about, I would say 81 is what it looks like to me. It looks 80, 81, somewhere in there. So as it's racing down, hasn't done any type of confirmation, we're stopping out on that just that little tick further. Okay, so on Intel on this day, you can see this huge run up, and that's what it was doing first thing in the morning. And there was I believe I had a trend line marked in there on that day, and it could have looked something like this. Okay, it was something along these lines. Am I correct on that? Do you remember?
There was a level placed somewhere along there, yeah.
Yes, somewhere in there.
It was
okay?
not the main focus, though. Like your eyes were elsewhere. It wasn't really a blip on your radar.
Yeah. So Intel, it went ballistic at the open, okay? And that was due to this here, this 4-day run up. And then we had a gap up. It was a slight gap up, but it was a gap up over the 100 SMA. The reason why I was no longer interested in Intel, although it was on screens, and I had absolutely no interest on this, is because of the setup. This is so close to squeezing, it's ridiculous. Because that trend line is so close, and there is a trend here, because I remember plotting this, it opened up on that gap up over the 100 SMA. That tells me it almost has no choice but to go retarded. That's what's going to happen here. So I'm not going to find another play because there's no point to find another play. We have 3 other plays on our screens, and I'm watching something else. Our main watch was on Apple and probably Qs. We've been watching Apple and Qs like the entire week, but Apple for sure. And because Apple, we've been stalking it. We have a really big play coming up on Apple. We're looking for it to base. So again, to kind of just give some background on this trade, and I'm just going to go over those entries one more time, just so then people can get an idea. So on this here, Adam is shorting it on that push up. These are puts, and they are melting down. So the one thing he enters first, this is one thing I want to point out. He enters, okay, for whatever reason, maybe it's still valid, and then it starts going ballistic, and those options are melting down quite a bit. If you look at his first entry, it's about $1.10, goes down, and his last entry is at about 90. So we're looking at about a 20-25% loss, somewhere in there, maybe a little bit more, probably about a 30% loss. And that there off of 3 contracts isn't overly bad, but again, not something that we should be even looking at because of the setup. So I just wanted to say all of that just to give context. So on that trade, Adam, what led you to take that? Because on that one specifically, once it opened up and I saw that, I didn't even mention that it was doing anything. It's nothing we were interested in. I want to get the thoughts and ideas behind why you executed.
It had a lot of speed and distance. And
yes, it did.
I'm pretty novice, I'll be honest. Mm-hmm. When the trend formation plays get set up, it's not my cup of tea. I'm super hesitant with that.
Yes.
The very traditional runs hard into a level, that's my jam. I've done that a bunch. And I FOMO'd in. Honestly, that's all it was. It was absolute fear of missing out. Everybody pretty much had taken Apple and it crushed it. They started taking profits and I'm sitting there, didn't take it because I hesitated. And then this started ripping and I said, oh, this looks good. It's coming up. It's going to start coming down a little bit. It's got to. And so I started in and off it went.
Okay. I got a question for you. Now, I'm sure because you've been with us a while, you've seen my trading, you know how I roll. I'm not trying to fuck with anyone or anything like that. So there's got to be a level of trust there, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So there is trust there. Now, the question, I guess, that I would have is, if I don't mention something like at all, and it's giving you speed and distance, it's giving you that, for those of you that don't know, our mantra at Tricktrades is speed, distance, into a valid support or resistance level, take the trade, accept the risk. That's basically it. It's very simple. That's part of the strategy. That's what we look for. So to Adam's credit, small little credit there. That's what he searched for. That's what he executed. Okay. So first glances at that trade, it's not a bad trade. The issue is, and I'm sure Adam and others would understand as well, I don't have a lot of time to explain every little detail, right? Like I'm sure that we all see the market when it opens up. I can only focus my time where the focus needs to be, right?
Right.
So basically what I'm getting at is if we see something, okay, with speed and distance going into the level, that is a perfect, flawless, on paper setup. It's dead nuts to our strategy. And you don't hear me mention it at all. I need you to start having that big flashing red light go off in your head. Like, okay, if he's not mentioning this at all, and this is fucking fitting to a T, there's got to be an alarm going off. So it boils down to that trust. Okay. Now it's trust in a different way. It's trust knowing that I'm doing my job at all times. Like, do you understand what I'm getting at? It's kind of, it's difficult to put into words what I'm asking here.
No,
like,
I get it. I hear what you're saying. And it does show a little bit of lack of trust when I don't take the trades that you're setting up. You're like, hey, here it is. We're giving it to you on a plate, and I don't take it. It does show a little bit of lack of trust. I won't say that it is that, because I do trust you. I wouldn't be here if I didn't.
Yeah.
Scars and the mental aspect of things that's just kind of messing with me still. It's fear, FOMO, all the bad things that trading, it's accumulated now, and they're deep scars, and it's tough for me to shake them.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that PTSD is real, and it's not just for veterans. It's not just for victims of violence. So when I first moved to Costa Rica, I remembered what it was like to hammer those weights every day, to eat. I ate the exact same meal every single day for years. And people think that's an exaggeration. It's not. It's the same meal every day. I created this perfect meal that hit my macros beautifully, had everything I needed, and it was fast and it was simple. And the discipline of that can give you PTSD, because stopping that and then thinking about restarting, all you remember is that fucking pain, right? There is a PTSD aspect to trading. Now, I know that particular example doesn't, but like I said, it took me so long to get my health back in order, because for so long, all I was doing was thinking about what it took to get to that point, to where, I'm 5'9" on a good day and 240 pounds on 10% body fat. That I was a fucking animal. I loved it, right? That was my life at that time. That's what I put into. And then, remembering that it's hard to restart. And that's you could even talk about anything, even on like a diet. This is one of the reasons why people have a hard time with diet, because they remember the pain of that diet that they took a year ago. They don't want to start it again. And PTSD is something that it affects all of us on one level or another. So the PTSD for traders is real. It is something that is real, that a lot of people don't take into account. When you do damage to yourself, it's very hard to get over that. And it's hard to get over those little hurdles of that damage that you've done, the pain that you received, because we are literally burning our hands on a stove every single day until we fucking learn, don't burn your hand on the stove. So how do we get ourselves over that? Well, to get ourselves over that, we need to remember that instead of focusing on that pain, and obviously there's a lot of self-work that has to happen along the way to get over stuff like that, because it's not a matter of just getting over it. We need to have some sort of a plan. With any type of plan or preparation, that can get you over a lot of shit. It's one of the reasons why, or how they get military men, especially special forces and shit, to do crazy shit without even thinking about it, because there's a plan. There's something designated that they can follow step by step by step that keeps their mind preoccupied, where they're not focused on, I'm going to get fucking shot here. And they're yelling at you to keep fucking running. Just keep moving. That's what they'll tell you. Just keep moving. You have to keep moving. Do not stop. So how do you keep moving when you got fucking bullets flying around you? Well, it's the same thing with the markets too. Well, maybe not the same, but in the same respect. You know, we have bullets flying around. We have potential losses. We have the market ripping up, ripping down, doing all sorts of crazy things. We're trying to dodge these bullets, right? And if we're focusing on that pain or those bullets coming at you, you're not going to fucking get anywhere. So we need to have some sort of steps or a plan. And this is why it's so important to always remember strategy. It's kind of what it always boils down to. And it boils down to trust as well. Now, I know you say you trust me or you wouldn't be here. And of course you do. There's a level of trust there, but it's not 100% trust. There is a mistrust there. And I understand why there is. I get it, but there has to be. Or else you would be following me 100%. When I say jump, you would say, how high, motherfucker, right? You know, you just would. So there is that level of trust. Now, I can't help you with that. That's something you'll have to work on. So what I would want you to do after this is do a follow-up with me, just in DM or wherever. And I want you to think of something that's like, because there's got to be something in there. It's going to take some thought as to like, okay, what is the level of mistrust? That trust is so fucking important when it comes to this. You have to trust the guy you're learning from. I know I keep going over this over and over and over again. And I know you said that you trust me, but there's something. It can only be that much, but that much is going to fuck you. Because we can talk about a trade that happened today on SPY. And when I'm giving these trade plans, they got to be taken. Those first main watches, how many times have you seen a first main watch fail, Adam? It's not often. Let's give it that. Let's give it that. Let's give it not often, once every 2 weeks, which it isn't. It goes longer than that. There's a reason why those trade recaps are fucking green every day. There'll be the occasional loss, right? But there is that. And these trades are being taken at the same time you guys are. So it's possible. Would you agree that it's possible for you to do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So we're getting somewhere with that. And it's a matter of actually following through. So that PTSD, to kind of bring it back to that PTSD that you've had from taking losses, missing out on shit, this and that, you got to wash yourself of that, because that's what's holding you back. As soon as a trade is about to trigger and you're about to execute that, you're stopping yourself. You're having a fearful thought. I guarantee you are, right? Would you agree that that's probably what's going on?
Absolutely. I can tell myself that I'm not all I want, but why am I not pulling the trigger? And yes, I am.
Yeah.
For sure.
To get over that, you need steps. You need a plan. But we have talked about this, that Adam and I have created a sizing strategy. And I know sizing is something that you want to come up and start sizing up and everything else. So what I'm going to ask you to do is just hang tight. I don't want you to size up right now. And I know you want to. Number one, I don't think you're ready to be sizing up. And we're going to get into the reasons why here in a few minutes. But I want you to wait for this, okay? So it's going to be available for all members, but it's going to be protected by an app. This app is going to do everything for you, okay? So you got to trust me when I'm telling you this thing, okay? The only small little glitch in the armor of this is the user. That's it. It's literally flawless. Like the speech that I gave on Screen Share the other day and the post that I put out the other day, I can't stress enough how honest that post was. There's no exaggeration. There's no marketing. There's no pump there. I'm not just trying to get you guys excited for the sake of getting excited. It's real and it's going to happen. So I need you to just hang tight on sizing up. Okay? It's coming soon. It's coming soon. We're working on the back end of it right now, and we're about this close. So it's coming. Okay? What I noticed on the conversation that we had on Screen Share this morning, okay, we had a little bit of back and forth. And then when I left, there was still some conversation going on. There's a level of truth that's going on that needs to be addressed. So Now I want to talk about that SPY trade, okay, that we took this morning. So let me get into my screens here and then I can explain it a little bit better. Okay, so we have SPY and I want you to take a look at the level here. The level is 523.81 with a secondary level of 524.63. Okay. So this was the trade plan coming into the opening bell. Like Adam had mentioned earlier, part of the strategy is speed and distance into the level. Now, if you take a look, there is no speed. There's no distance that can possibly happen with this first level. So why did we take it? Because when we have back-to-back levels and we have protection like this level here, which is market all-time highs, it's an extremely valid level. This first level is just an area that it can reject. So therefore, because it can reject with high probabilities, we don't want to miss a trade like this. Okay? Because of the setup, we are gapped down below that resistance level. We want to be in this one. There's high potential in this. When we have a gap up of, I believe it was like 4.5 points or something like that, it's a big gap up, right? And we know that there is high potential in this, so we don't want to miss it. That's what I'm trying to get at. We don't want to miss this one. So this upper level becomes part of that first initial entry. It is within our risk tolerance, and I snap my crosshairs beforehand. Now, I won't be able to do it because of this web thing again, but it is 83 cents away or 88 cents away. That is well within our risk tolerance. Right, Adam?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So if we know that, and we know that we are within a point which is acceptable risk for a $525 stock, which is minor, right? It's very minor when you look at it that way. We have to take it. And we're executing that first push into that first very close level because, again, it can absolutely fail there. It can absolutely come up, hit its head, and drop. We don't want to miss it. This has a big trade potential here, okay? So that's a part of that. The discussion back and forth with Adam here this morning, I asked him why he didn't take it. Or maybe he just mentioned why he didn't take it. I can't remember how it all panned out.
I think I chimed in.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what did you tell me?
I said I didn't take it because I hesitated and I didn't want to chase.
Okay. So the first part was the chase. So the first part of the conversation, Adam said that he didn't want to chase it. That chart immediately, like I've been doing this a long time, right? So I called him on that. There is no chase. There's no chase there. So we have to stop lying to ourselves and we have to get to the real answer. It's always the truth behind the trade. There's a reason why we've called this podcast that, right? The truth behind a trade is what is going to give you your actual answer. If you lie to yourself, there's no way that we can ever fix anything, even on a minor scale. Like, it's a big fucking deal. And a lot of people kind of will have problems with that. They're going to tell themselves little lies because it makes them a lot more comfortable. Okay. So Adam said he didn't want to chase, which if he was talking to a guy that runs a room, like the majority of them out there, he would just read that and be like, okay, good job. You didn't want to chase. Pat on the back, right? That's not how we roll here. He's getting called out on that shit. So yes, called him out on it, basically called him a liar, but in a good way, because he is. He's lying right now. He's lying to me. That, whatever. He can lie to me all he wants. The important person not to lie to is yourself, right? We can't lie to ourselves as traders. This takes 100% honesty. It's honesty on a level that is hard to wrap our heads around sometimes. So there's that. And then it was a secondary lie, which was you hesitated, right? And there's no reason to hesitate there. Because we went over the protection of that level, we know we need to take that. So it's not like a lie like the chase, but there's a whiff of bullshit in there. It's small, but it's there. And we need to always be honest.
Yeah, no, you nailed it. I was trying to make myself feel a little more comfortable and better about the situation when honestly I was scared to pull the trigger. And
that's what it boils down to.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I did this to make, I chimed that in. And after you called me out and I thought about it later today, I was like, yeah, I was absolutely lying to myself.
Yeah.
Lying to you just to make myself feel better for not doing the right thing. It's not right. So I'm glad that I have somebody like you to call me out.
Well, yeah, I think a lot of people don't like when they get put on the spot like that. And I've made this speech 1,000 times. People have to understand that sometimes I'll word something. I don't want to come off like an asshole when I say like everything I do has purpose behind it, but it does. Especially like I take my job teaching very serious. I want nothing more, and I've said it 1,000,000 times, than for you guys to get your shit together. I want that because I know what's on the other side, and it's fucking beautiful. It is, man. And there's more than enough of the market to go around. So why would I want to hold that back for myself, right? You know, like to be able to provide for yourself and your family and everything else, it's fucking there, man. It's there, right? I'm going to say things that people maybe don't want to hear, but they have to fucking hear it. And maybe sometimes if I put in the word fuck, it's to get that attention and to grasp their brain. Like it needs to get sunk in somehow. And sometimes with what are you going to remember? If someone gives you a stern lecture or someone breaks your fucking nose, you're going to remember if they break your nose. You cannot forget that. And sometimes we just need a punch in the fucking face, man. And that's how it is. Some people have a hard time with that because they would rather be lied to. It's all about that comfortability. Fuck being comfortable. Comfortable gets you fucking nowhere. Then to continue this unraveling the truth behind the trade here, I log off. I'm done for the morning. We're all wrapped up, finished talking with Adam. And then I noticed this, and I want to get into this. Adam's going back and forth, and he's talking with Kelvo. Kelvo is our moderator that takes over for us. And if something is a really slap you in the face trade, he'll get you into it. But if not, for the most part, it's just a lot of information and education, price action, dissection, all of that stuff. He takes care of the rest of the traders. Adam's going back and forth, talking with Kelvo. And this right here, I wasn't going to interrupt, Pat, because the lesson was still very valid for me, but I had 524.11 marked. Okay, so why was that typed?
I did have that marked, and that's no bullshit.
Yeah.
I like to go on previous before you guys do anything earlier in the morning and mark my own levels.
Yep.
And it just gives me a little bit more confidence when you guys kind of call out the same ones. I'm like, oh, good, I saw that as well, and it's a reassurance. And for some reason, I didn't get it changed to the correct level.
Okay.
And when you were going on your lesson, I didn't want to interrupt him because it was kind of a trivial thing to interrupt you, because I did need to hear that. I needed to hear, no, you're not hesitating. You need to be true with me, true to yourself. And I did need to hear that. And
okay. So you had marked out the 524.11.
It was a couple of days ago high is where I had it. It was right there. I mean, it was within 20 cents of your level, and it didn't get changed for whatever reason. I made a mistake.
No. Okay, that's fine. So I thought I was actually going to get a different answer, because what took place here last night during the hyperscan, and that's where I put out my scans every evening. They're generally like pretty solid levels, but sometimes they're just preliminary levels. And then I'll tweak them in the morning. So this morning I did have, I believe it would have worked out to be 524, maybe 11, but it could have been 36 or something like that. I'd have to pull up the charts, but it doesn't matter. But then after that, I made a tweak, because I noticed through snapping my crosshairs that I could take care of all of that resistance by just starting in at that level that I finalized. Okay, so that finalized level, I could take care of the rest of those resistance levels. Okay, so that's what I thought I was going to get. I thought you were going to say I didn't readjust the level that you had previous. Okay. So regardless though, so Adam and I were talking about this before, producer Adam, before you logged in. Now on that trade, when we talked and you asked, or however it came about that you hesitated or you didn't want to chase, whatever the answers were, you don't have the right to even talk about SPY at that point. Now, let me explain why. I know that comes off really fucking in your face, but just hear me out. If we don't prepare properly, what fucking business do you have even thinking about that trade? You don't, do you? You don't. If you, and I understand that you wanted to mark out that level. I understand where you're coming from. But we need to understand that if we are struggling, we need to accept that hand being reached out to pull you off that fucking edge. You need to accept that. So that moving forward, that's what I need you to do. I need you to accept the help. Okay? We no longer can be going out on our own and doing our own things. That's not working. We know this, right? But what I'm trying to get at with putting it like that, like you have no fucking business even talking about, even mentioning that you didn't want to chase or you didn't want to whatever. It's because it was never tweaked. It was never thoroughly planned. It would be like about to go on a really long road trip, like a cross-country road trip, without doing an oil change, without checking the lug nuts on your fucking wheels, without even checking the air pressure in your tires, just literally jumping in the car and fucking heading down the highway for 3,000 fucking miles. We wouldn't do that, right? Like there's even on a small level of preparation, even if someone's not into doing all that much preparation before they jump in a car before going on a cross-country road trip. We all would admit there's some sort of check, even checking the oil. We at least do that. We do something before we jump in the vehicle and go for that ride. So that's what I'm saying. That person that is about to go on a cross-country road trip has no fucking business going on that cross-country road trip if they decide to just jump in that vehicle. Why? Because what can happen? Well, a lot can happen. That's a lot of miles on the vehicle. And if you don't check the oil, you might seize your engine. If you don't check the tightness of your lug nuts, quick 10 minutes to do, maybe a fucking wheel blows off. Now, I've had a dual blow off on my old welding rig, and it narrowly escaped a busy highway. People on that highway, hundreds of them, and I watched it, and it dodged in and out of fucking traffic. And I had these stupid aluminum spacers on, and I knew I should have taken them off, and I didn't. And that's what happened. And I don't know how I didn't kill anyone. I still to this day, I can remember that wheel crisscrossing through traffic down Highway 2 in fucking Alberta. And that is a busy fucking highway is what that is. So I had no business being on the road knowing that, because we know that preparation is everything, right? That's what I mean by you had no business even talking about SPY, because that's how I look at it. If I don't do any preparation whatsoever and I'm jumping in on trades at my full size or any size, I know I have no business doing that. So that's why I put it like that. Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Okay. Now to talk about Adam wanting to do things on his own, marking out those levels. Now, I understand. Don't get me wrong. Even with all of that I just fucking said, I know what you want to do. I know you're trying to test yourself. You're trying to better yourself. I get it. I understand that, right? That's why you're doing it, right? You want to test yourself.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
We have to hold back. We have to have the discipline not to do that. And we have to accept that handout. When somebody's throwing you that ball, do you just stand there and like fucking take that fucking baseball in the face, or do you put your hand out? You want to put your hand out, right? And that's what this is. This is what learning and education is. There is a disconnect, and there's always been a disconnect with day trading and education. People always want to, and I've heard it 1,000 times. I've had so many members leave and they'll write me that last message saying thank you. And they'll say, but it's always the but. And I can always stop there because I know what's coming next in that next sentence. But I have to go it on my own and put this all to the test. I have to test myself, Pat. You always talk about testing yourself. Again, you have no business testing yourself right now because there's a struggle there. And that struggling isn't going to go away just from you placing one level. I know you want confidence, right? Because last week you took a trade and the trade was good. And the way you phrased that question, and you even said afterwards, you were just looking for a pat on the back. And then I told you, we don't need that. You don't need that, Adam. You don't need a pat on the back from me. You need a pat on the back from yourself. If you know that after going over and actually looking at that trade from a non-biased perspective, and you know that you did everything you could and you're proud of it, then fucking be proud of it. You don't need me to tell you I'm proud of you, right? And a lot of people do that, right? Like, I'm guilty of that. Everyone's guilty of that. But at the end of the day, we just don't need that, right? Like, if you took a good trade, know it to be true. Like, just accept it. Accept that you did everything you could. And no pat on the back from me is going to help. It might boost your ego and your confidence this much for that long, but that's it. It's not going to be long lasting. What will be long lasting is when you do it yourself. You know it because you looked it up after, like I do every evening. It's one of the reasons why I do trade recaps. I'm not just going to do a trade recap for marketing purposes to get my trades out there and show everyone how fucking awesome I am. It's because I need to go through my trades and I might as well fucking record it while I'm doing it, because that's all I'm doing there. I'm looking at those trades, and you'll even hear in my trade recaps, sometimes it's like, I really didn't like that one. I know I could have been a little more patient in it, blah, 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 whatever the case is. That's all I'm doing, right? So when you're going through this stuff, just go through it for yourself. You don't need me to give you a pat on the back. You don't need that, right? Like, confidence as a trader is crucial. It's really important. I know it's hard to get confidence when you're in that struggle. I know it is. But there's a reason why when you watch movies on all of these stock market movies, you got these guys and they're blowed out of their mind and they're fucking swinging dicks. Because it does take that. Well, maybe not the blow, but the fucking swinging dick part. We have to have a level of confidence to where it's almost a level of delusion, right? And I've talked about that before. It is important. We really have to like push for that. And sometimes when we're struggling, the way Adam might be struggling right now, it's hard to find that confidence, but you're just going to continue this endless cycle of fucking up because there's a lot of things that are going on here, right? So do you understand with what I'm getting at, why I'm saying that, how I'm saying that about you have no fucking business even thinking about that because the preparation was not there.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with the struggling part. And I am struggling right now.
Mm-hmm.
I should be focusing on completely other things and just using your guidance, taking that hand.
Yeah.
I have other issues. Marking levels is not my issue right now.
Exactly.
I have some other things.
Exactly, right? Like, your level that you had wasn't wrong, right? Like, it's a right level. There's a level there. Take that ball that I'm throwing you, because I even said we're protected. So when we have these levels, and there's a million different levels on the way up, if you can, and it's a cheat code, it's the way to look at this. If you can start here and you take care of all of these little levels all the way up, and you have a top of the heap level, there's no other levels above. You see how it's a cheat code? It doesn't matter where you start in. And it's one of the hardest things to like really wrap a guy's head around. It doesn't actually matter. If you're within risk, hit it. Fucking hit it, man. Don't worry about that. because it's not going to blow through 4 levels of resistance all the way straight up. Now, it might do that throughout the day, trending up, but we're not talking about that. We take first reaction, in, out. We want that pullback. Once it pulls back, game over, right? That trade's done. If we get follow through, we get follow through. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. And it's about paying ourselves that 1/2 inch, 1 inch that we talk about, right? So if it's a cheat code, it's a way of looking at it. That's how you need to. It's not about 524.11 or the 523.86. It's 520.83 or 523.86 all the way up to whatever that high was. That's what it is. It's a cheat code. I can take care of all of this. I don't even need to think about it. I fucking execute and I accept. I don't oversize on that first entry because it can go up here. And I've talked about this a lot. And I know that lesson goes over people's, it's not, sorry, I shouldn't put it like that. It's not like the lesson goes over people's heads. Fear takes over because they see that distance and they always think the worst, right? Like I had a guy at Tricktrades that he'd always used to say, but what if it just keeps going? What if the fucking Nazis won the war, man? Like we're talking what ifs now? Like Jesus Christ, man. Like it can do that, but what are the odds of it? And it's about the odds. I think, Adam, we know that you're struggling a lot. And this part might be a little bit uncomfortable because it is going to put you on the spot. So what we have here, and this isn't something we would normally share, okay? This is on our back end. There's no personal information or anything, but this can be a little embarrassing. So we have Adam's test results. And I should have asked him about this first, but fuck it, I'm an asshole. So I might as well just embrace it.
I didn't know this is coming.
So we're looking at, we have the Tricktrades Bootcamp. And the Tricktrades Bootcamp it's just the beginner's course. It kind of gets you up to date and up to speed with the strategy and, some other things that we're doing. The education, right? And there's a quiz, and there's quite a few quizzes. And how they're labeled is what they are. So the first one here is basic training quiz number 2 and final exam question. So Adam passed. Now, the second one here is basic training quiz number 1. He failed. The next one is the trading essentials quiz. Failed. Adam passed the orientation quiz. This is all part of the boot camp. So he passed 2 and failed 2. He's batting 500 here. So the reason why I wanted to bring this up, and let me get out of this, but I want us to all just really take a look at this, okay? So these quizzes, they're not boring. There's some pretty funny answers in there. It keeps you engaged. So I don't believe it could be boredom. What happened there?
So yeah, I thought that I had gone back and retaken those tests and passed them and then continued on. Because generally I won't move on to something else until I pass the...
Okay.
I like to do it in order. So I don't know. I have my mistake.
Okay. So, and I know the camera's on, and don't take this question too personally. That's an honest answer, because I'm going to trust you on your word here.
100%. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So
I'm done like you, Pat. I've touched that hot stove enough.
Okay. Okay. So then we can leave it at that. That's actually what I was going to say. What the fuck is stopping you from going back and finding the right answers, even if it takes you 20 times? So for the ones that may be watching this and be like, oh man, that was a little harsh putting those exam results up. Like, man, that's fucking embarrassing. Fuck embarrassment. Fuck your feelings, fuck your embarrassment. I don't care about your feelings or if you're embarrassed, right? My job to those people thinking like that is to get Adam on the right track, okay? And that's the question. I'm not being the asshole. He's being the asshole if he's not going to go back and do that, because he's being an asshole to himself, right? So if you said you went back, perfect. That's what I wanted to talk about. And because it's fine to fail things. A lot of people look at failure in the really wrong way. And I've talked about this a lot. There's nothing that I would consider that I've ever done a failure, like just a put a fucking red stamp on it failure. They're only things to learn from. And I know that that gets talked about a lot, and it's almost talked to death, right? Where it almost has no meaning anymore. It's like a cliche. But that couldn't be any more true. Like, it's so important that we flip our mindset and we start thinking about things in the right way. Failure, no such thing, man. There's only teaching points. There's only learning points. There's only stuff to learn from. Like, you'll never be brilliant at something immediately. Like my son, he's obviously young and he's a young teenager. And everything he does, if he's not immediately fucking amazing at it, it's like, fuck this, fuck that. And then it's my job to come in and tell him, hey, look, man, do you think I started anything and was just an immediate badass at it? No way, man. It takes work, right? So, like, it's just, there's nothing more that you can really do, right? Like, learn from it, move on, go back. So I'm glad you went back and you addressed the problems, right? So that's definitely a good spot. So to move forward now, what I really need you to do is accept that help. Like we just did an Ascension podcast. And an Ascension podcast, for those of you that haven't watched it, is where we talk about the use of tools, specific tools, psychedelics, in the way of helping you as a trader, because it helps you get over mental blocks and roadblocks and everything else. It really helps you work on yourself. So Adam, while he was in, not this Adam, producer Adam, I know it can get confusing on this episode, but he was working through some problems that he was having. And the word that kept coming up while he was in one of his trips was acceptance. And that little word, a lot of people will brush over those little words, right? Like acceptance, like, okay, yeah, I accept it. But when you take that to actual heart and you fully believe in that word acceptance, like just fucking accepting, that's when things change. That's when real work begins. That's when you just let time tick by, right? So that's what I'm asking you to do, Adam, is really accept that help. Accept that ball. Let me throw that ball to you and fucking catch it, man. So that's number one. Now, number two, we have to work on the word listening as well. That Intel trade that you took on Monday was nonsense. Okay. Now we talked about it, and I know that there had speed and distance. So there's some level of trusting there as well. So again, like I said at the beginning, if you can think about that, just really think about that. And if you don't come up with something, that's okay too. But even just for you, just to work on that trust, because it's easy to just say, I trust you, but do you believe it in your soul? Because you can't lie to your soul. You can't lie to your heart. It's in there, right? So there's got to be something there. And we don't have 3 weeks talking with you trying to find out why the problems are what they are. But I think for starts, it's the accepting the help, the trust, something that you can think about, right? And I can help you with. And then it is really listening. The main watch, those main watches are so important. And you have to trust that I have all my bases covered. Now, there's going to be the occasional time, sure, I may miss something, right? But it's rare though. If we miss something, we miss something. It happens to the best of us. But we have to listen, and we have to take that first main trade out of the gate. All of those other extra trades, because of FOMO, or you didn't want to do this, you didn't want to do that, those are bullshit excuses. It boils down to listening, right? We just got to listen. Like, I can't fix you of that. You know what I mean? Like, I wish I fucking could. I wish there was something I could just throw at you and say, hey, here, there you go, do that. But that takes the work. And you are doing self-work. Like, you are working on yourself. Now, I think there's things that you could definitely put more time and energy into like the way maybe you're doing, and I haven't asked you about it, so I don't know. I might be just talking out of my ass here. But I think really focusing on those main hurdles and then finding the root cause of those. Remember, it's always about that root cause, right? Like maybe you're angry. You don't strike me as an angry guy, but we'll just use that as an example. Maybe you're angry, right? And you think you're angry because, I don't know, your ex-old lady's whatever, and she's taking you to the cleaners. But the root cause of that is option C, whatever that is. Do you know what I mean? I know that's the best analogy that I could come off the top of my head, right? So
Right.
It's about getting to the truth behind everything. That truth is so important when it comes to all of this. Like, and I could ramble about this for fucking hours and hours and hours about the truth and how important it is. That truth is everything. Because again, it's so easy to lie to ourselves. It's so fucking easy, man. We do it daily. But if you can actually stop yourself from accepting that lie all the time and just taking that easy way out, that's when your life changes. That's when my life changed, man. I was full of bullshit. I always lied to myself. I procrastinated, which procrastination is ultimately a lie because you don't want to fucking deal with something. And it kept me way down. It kept me down here. The second I had enough of that shit and I started just being honest with myself, and there's a learning curve to that, right? There's no bounds. There's no limitations anymore. Like, you have it licked. So I think that that's really the advice that I would give you. And a lot of this stuff, Adam, is about how much work you're willing to do, right? Like, at the beginning of this, I asked you, and that was part of it with that, like, are you giving it your 100%? And that was going to be a little bit of a gotcha moment, but it didn't happen and it all worked out. And I'm happy it did. It's about just continuing on and accepting and everything else like that we talked about. And a lot of this stuff, there are going to be things I'm simply not going to be able to help you with. But what I can help you with is my guidance. But it's up to you to meet me halfway with that, like, catch that ball. I'm throwing it to you. You got to catch it, man.
Oh, it's helped a lot. I didn't know how much I was lying to myself, and I was about a lot of stuff. And it was just to make myself feel comfortable.
Yes.
Taking my journal and really analyzing if I am journaling correctly and being honest with myself is going to be a huge step moving forward.
I think that's everything, to be honest, Adam. Like, now I don't journal, but I have conversations with myself like all the time, like full blown conversations where I'm not internalizing, I'm vocalizing when I do this. That's how I kind of work through problems and stuff. But you know what you should do? Go back through your journal and sniff out the bullshit. I think that's actually, you know what, man, fuck that. That's step one. Go through and call yourself on every little piece of bullshit, because that journal is you. No one else is going to read that, and you're lying to yourself, right? You're going to find a million different little lies, even the smallest of lies. I want you to call yourself on it. And I think that's something that we're coming up into the weekend now. It's a perfect weekend exercise. And I think if you actually do that, you actually go through and you start picking apart where you're just full of shit, you're lying to yourself. I think that's that's that turning point. And mark my words, if you do that, like, man, I could see an absolute 180 here, 100%. I really do. Because it's got to start somewhere, right? Like, we could all say, I'm going to stop lying to myself. I'm going to stop being, I'm not going to lie to myself anymore. But what's the starting point? Where do we start? The next lie? Catching yourself? Or do you just fucking start it right there because you have physical proof of it? It's something that you can go back and take a look and just be like, that, I know I was being dishonest there. Like, do you have any other thoughts on any of this?
No, I think this helped out a lot. You kind of nailed it. I'm really glad that I chimed in today, and
I'm glad you did.
I got barked at a little bit, and that's needed. And this has been really good today as well. This interview, it's going to help me tremendously.
I think so. And I think it's going to help a lot of people too, because there's a lot of people in your exact same situation. I was there too. I think people forget that. Like, every little thing, every single time we do a truth behind the trade, or I talk to a trader or a member on DM, or even just a trader on DM, they forget sometimes that I was in that exact spot. Every little flaw or every hurdle, I've been down that road, been there, done that, man. Like, I understand. I get it. I know why we say the things that we say to ourselves. I know why. But I needed to get over that. And these are just some of the things that I know will help and that need to be addressed. Like, some things I'm not going to be able to help with, like I've said. So I think this was really good. I think this is really going to help people as well. So again, I know, like pulling up this and doing that and showing a really shitty trade you had no fucking business being in and telling you had no business being in that. I think stuff like this, it gives a level of honesty in a dishonest world where it can only help, because we're surrounded by dishonesty. And in this day and age, it's very easy to be dishonest. It's super easy to be dishonest. And being out in the open with honesty, and if people put more emphasis on it, you'd be fucking good to go, man. So that's, I think, where I'm going to end this one. And again, I appreciate you coming on, because I know it's not easy, especially if it's like, these are touchy subjects with honesty and stuff like that, because people can take it as an attack on a man's integrity. It is, though, right? Like, we should always, especially as men, push for that ownership of all situations, of all aspects of life. Like, we should want to get better. So, I appreciate you coming out, man. And yeah, I think this is great. I think a lot of people are gonna benefit from this. And if you have any other like follow-up questions, hit me up. We can always address it next podcast.
Great. Thanks, Pat.
Thanks, man.